Hello. Welcome to the Ask Dr. Be Good show, the show where we try to show the very good things that are happening in public education. And today will be an informative one that we're going to concentrate on the topics of bullying and cyberbullying. We have touched on them before, but that's one of those topics that we continue to need to have our parents help us with and be informed about. So let's get started first by going around the room and seeing who's here.
My name is Staci Weaver, and I'm the Global Systems Director.
Natasha Forge, College and Career Counselor.
My name is Amelia Zambrano, and I'm the K-8 school counselor in the Plano campus.
My name is Keshunia Johnson, and I'm also the K-8 school counselor at the Mesquite campus.
So we have the power players here, the social emotional power players of Legacy here, to help us understand what is bullying, what is cyberbullying, and what are we doing as a district to get ahead of it. Ms. Weaver, talk a little bit about your background and why you're here talking about bullying and cyberbullying.
Sure. Well, I have kind of a diverse background. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, so I handled bullying and cyberbullying on that side of the fence. And then when I retired, I went into education and became an administrator and principal. And so I've handled a tremendous amount of bullying on my campuses.
Okay. And so what is bullying? Talk a little bit about what the law says bullying is.
So the law says that bullying is anything that makes a student uncomfortable, that exploits, causes an imbalance of power. It can be threats, it can be written, it can be oral, anything that makes a child or a person uncomfortable. In addition to it, if it has an effect on them emotionally, physically, or if it changes the course of their day in the school setting, all of that is considered bullying.
Okay.
I will say to that it does usually have to be something that is ongoing. So it's not an isolated event. And so that's what we like for our parents and our students, our scholars to understand, that we will always, basically we're going to look into every situation that has taken place. However, an investigation may stop at the point when we realize that it's only a one-time occurrence. So let's just say that there are students walking in the hallway, one student bumps into the other student, no one, makes says an apology, and they continue to go. So then sometimes students will come to the principal's office, the director's office, and say someone is bullying me. That was a one-time isolated event. The director will at that point look into the situation. However, it will not be a full investigation as in bullying.
Right. So one of the things that we've really had to train parents on is the difference between bullying and inappropriate behavior.
Correct.
And we tend to name everything bullying now instead. There's a checklist in Texas, isn't there?
Yes, we have a checklist, and that's what we go by. Basically, it starts out with, is it a single significant act, or was there a pattern of acts? And then if it's a single significant act, then at that point, that's when the full bullying investigation ends. However, the director still communicates with the students who were involved. However, if it is a pattern of acts, then at that point a full investigation does take place, in which all parties are involved, both parties as far as the scholars and then the parents as well.
Yes, and that's something we want to help parents understand, is that just because it's a one-time inappropriate behavior act, that doesn't mean we're not going to investigate it and have a consequence if one is warranted. It's just that we won't call it bullying.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we have this new, I won't say new, but new for this century, I guess, cyberbullying. Can you talk a little bit about that, Ms. Weaver?
Absolutely. So cyberbullying is basically anything that's done through electronics. So that could be the cell phone, texting, social media like your Facebook, Instagram, things like that. It could also be things such as other than the electronics and the emails, it can be anything that's used digitally to transmit any type of threats or intimidation. And if in any form of bullying, whether it's the cyber or the bullying, it has to be pervasive and persistent.
Is that only if it happens at school?
No, and that's a very important caveat to the bullying and the cyberbullying. School districts are required to investigate, regardless of if it happened on school property, on a weekend, on a holiday, on a school trip, on school property. off of school property. Because if the bullying affects the student's learning and social emotional behavior at school, then school districts are absolutely required to investigate and handle the situation and meet with, like Ms. Forge was just explaining, bring parents together, bring students together, and come to an agreement that this is bullying. When you get past that one time, then yes.
What are we doing from a internet standpoint to keep that from happening, at least at school?
So we have very strong filtering systems at our schools. What they block anything like even Netflix, Facebook, all of those type of things. So what we've done is we've built our filters that we've listed everything we could think of, and anything that if you Google that would also come with it, so that we have a very strong and large filtering system. In addition, teachers all have a system in their computers. They can see what every student in their classroom is on at that moment, and if by any chance they are on an inappropriate site, they can take them immediately off the site and report it to us. We have a very strong Google filter because we use Google for our students. They all have Google addresses, so we're able to see anything that goes back and forth on their Google accounts to make sure it's not inappropriate or not. If it's not school related, of course, then we'll address it.
So we have IT managers at each location. Are they looking at that regularly? Who looks at that?
So the IT, we have an IT supervisor. He is consistently looking at that. He runs it usually hourly. The techs also have a computer where they leave it up, and it'll pop up if something on our inappropriate list, a child's even just trying to get on. Even if the student didn't get on, it alerts them that they were trying. And so this includes games and anything that you think a child might want to get on, we put it on the list, and we continue to look at what they're trying to get on. And most of the times they don't get on it, but then that gives us additional information to look at larger parameters and add more filters.
Have we gotten better at keeping that down? I mean,
So I can tell you from when we started to monitor and then we put in the system school-wide, tremendous difference, like 75% down of yes, it's reduced 75% in improper use.
it's good to know.
Yes, it's working very well.
One of the things that we teach at our school, especially secondary, is information technology. How are we keeping those guys from hacking into our system?
So again, the filters that we have in place, we have what's called a SonicWall. So SonicWall is our protection. So it stops students from hacking in. It will let us know the IP address, if the attempts, anything like that. It will let us know. We've been lucky with SonicWall, haven't had that issue this year. Students haven't hacked in with the new filters that we've put into, but we have brilliant students, so there's always a chance. I mean, they're
That's
amazing.
why I'm asking.
Yeah, they're amazing. So far nobody's hacked. They haven't hacked into the new systems that we've implemented, but I never say never.
Well, part of what we have to do is get students to like us enough and respect us enough not to do that. Ms. Zambrano, how do we do that? How do we help our K-8 kids to respect our systems enough?
Right, and what Legacy mainly offers extensive professional development trainings for teachers to educate our scholars to become aware of the different between having a conflict and a bullying situation. So teachers are educating our scholars to identify those and different approaches that we consider as a whole district, because I speak, educators, teachers, aide, including myself. We teach them about STAR culture. This is a district-wide approach that teaches our scholars to have respect for one another, become responsible learners, teaches about trustworthy.
Right?
Yes, exactly. So in every classroom, there's a poster size model of the STAR culture, which is scholars are expected to follow at all times.
Well, I do hear, and I hope it's still true, that usually when we have trouble, especially at the beginning of the year, it's usually our new kids, our kids who have not been at Legacy for a year or two, and who haven't drunk enough of the STAR culture Kool-Aid, so to speak. What other things do we do, Ms. Zambrano?
We positively reward our scholars who demonstrate acts of kindness, who show respect in the hallways and during specials, in the cafeteria and the classrooms, and we have certificates. We offer them kids meals. We provide them with incentives to reward for their being respectful and treating others with respect.
What kind of
So-
guidance counseling is going on in the K-8?
We have what we call Mind Up. So in the classroom, and when I get my groups, I teach them how the mind works. So we talk about the 3 different main functions of the brain. So we talk about the prefrontal cortex, and the meaning that that's where they receive all the information when teachers are teaching them. So that's where they begin to store in the hippocampus, and then they learn about the amygdala, which for them it starts in kinder, and it's just fascinating for them to even know, oh, I know these words, and they're so fun to learn about. So they train their brains, they train their minds to have a different mindset about the way they behave.
So, Ms. Johnson, you're also K-8 at Mesquite. Is there anything else that we do that you can think of?
At our campus, when we have conflict resolution, we focus on the restorative circles, and being able to just sit down and be cordial to one another. We start the restorative process even and less leaning toward the punitive. We focus more on keeping our scholars in school, and the teachers through role modeling appropriate behaviors.
Right, we have asked, go ahead. You want
Oh, and just to add with the restorative circle, it's if there's a conflict, let's say, because even last week we talked about, there was a student who was very angry, something that happened in the morning before going to school. So I did a little restorative circle on, what makes you angry. So everyone gets to share how they feel about, and the things they're doing, and what can they do to not feel that way. And in speaking of the way each student understands how each one feels, it helps them, instead of pinpointing, oh, it was his fault, her fault, they focus more on finding a solution to the conflict.
Because I will say,
Which is
when
very
working with the
helpful.
restorative circles, a lot of our students realize the commonalities that they have, and it builds empathy with our students, because you realize that you're not the only person that's going through that. You're not alone. And so when working with the students and doing restorative circles, you come to find out that students are a lot more resilient and empathetic than some adults. And so when working with them and doing the restorative circles, they're really good at resolving their own conflict, and they're really good at communicating if given the opportunity.
And understanding their differences of opinions, and they respect that. So,
Yeah, and like any district, we have various levels of implementation, but we have asked all teachers to implement restorative circles in the morning. Matter of fact, we say that our drop-off time is really before 7:45,
Yeah.
so teachers can pick up,
Right.
and then pick up at 7:45 and start your restorative practice circles, and start building that relationship and within the class. I know that not all teachers have bought into that yet. We're hoping that, this is our 3rd year. More teachers are doing that. Certainly I see more this year than I did in year 1. So hopefully we'll win more over.
And that's a good way to catch it, like from the very, first minute of the day. Even just asking them, how happy are you right now? So, and they'll identify it right away. And by that time, I know the teacher will probably call me and say, Ms. Zambrano, this student, is not feeling so good this morning. So kind of give them time to recollect, themselves, and then send them back to class. But it is very helpful. It's very effective.
Part of the governor's message around school safety is making sure that we build relationships with kids. And so helping our teachers to get more comfortable with restorative circles done regularly over time will, help us with those anomaly kids that otherwise might not be on the radar, and then get on the radar in a negative way down the road. So we need to continue the valuing of restorative practice, especially since we know it works. It was started in the social justice system, working with juveniles, and sometimes our secondary teachers tend to think that they don't have to do that with their older kids, when in fact it was started with older kids, and it's worked its way down to the lower grades. So Ms. Forge, talk a little bit about high school. I know that high school kids tend to bully less, but if they do, it's more intense. Would that be a true statement?
It will be a true statement, as well as more so cyberbullying. Majority, when it does happen in high school, it's basically indirect, and it's going to be on some type of social media platform. A lot of times, some of them like to use Snapchat because they feel as if they send the information out, and it's quote unquote, gone within 24 hours, then they're safe. However, that is untrue. And that's one of the things that we would like for scholars and parents to understand, just similar to what Ms. Weaver shared not too long ago. Even though the scholars are doing it, like sending this information at home or, their cousin's house, it doesn't matter where they are. However, if the student is uncomfortable at the schoolhouse, then at that point it becomes a school issue.
So speaking of school issues and so forth, we have been seeing the last few years kids that are coming in very anxious, oftentimes pre-suicidal. Ms. Johnson, can you talk a little bit? Unfortunately, Mesquite West has been the school to have that more this year.
Absolutely.
And can you talk a little bit about?
There are a lot of statistics that show that in this day and age that the suicide ideation amongst our students is rising. It's very common. It's not just at our school. It's like a nationwide issue, which leads back into the social emotional learning and efforts in just educating the whole student, and not so much cognitive as getting down to the emotional issues that some of our students have. The students these days deal with so much more than most of us could even imagine having to deal with. And so at Legacy, we have a culture of just protecting the student, the whole student, educating the whole student. And so and for instance, we've had quite a few assessments, and that's what we would call them. So how that happens is someone will either be alerted and a referral will be made to the counseling staff or an administrator. Once a referral is made on our campus, we take it very seriously. Students are not left alone from that point. We try to sit down and build a rapport. We make face-to-face contact with that student that day, also with that parent on that day, so that we can kind of get to the bottom of it. I had a couple of statistics that said 12% of 6th to 12th grade students have reported seriously considering suicide. 9% actually develop a plan, and 6% report having actually attempted suicide between the 6th and the 12th grade. So this is a real issue. And so once the protocol starts the ball rolling, we immediately take it very, very seriously.
So let's talk a little bit about that protocol. The
Yes.
teacher, oftentimes it's a teacher or another student that
Yes.
alerts you.
Yes.
Sometimes the student themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Self-referrals.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Self-referral. So let's say you get one of those. Somebody refers themselves or somebody else to you. Then what happens?
Okay. Immediately, we take the student into our office, and we, if the student's capable, we immediately do an assessment of self-harm to make sure they didn't attempt anything on campus, they haven't taken anything and ingested anything. And then we move forward with the assessment. And what that looks like is usually me and Ms. Forge, because we work on a campus together, or I pull someone else in, just so that we can have documentation. My assessment will be accurate. I can have someone else looking in. And then we start an assessment and a line of questioning, asking that student, how do you feel? Why do you feel this way? What made you feel this way? Sometimes with smaller students, we use drawings. Believe it or not, the earliest assessment that I've had to perform was like a second grader. And once a student says it, you take it seriously. You never think, oh, they're just talking, or they just want attention. That's not our call to make. We follow the protocol. So like I stated, you determine if a student is low risk to high risk. And then you have in the middle is usually moderate. If a student is low risk, you can make parent contact that day. We take a statement. We contact our central office. We try to keep everybody in the loop on what the next steps will be. If a student is high risk, go
And
ahead.
always providing a list of resources for the parents and the families of the scholar.
And if a student is high risk, we've gone as far as immediate parent contact and contacting, like you said, some of the outside resources, our LSSP, which we have on campus, to immediately try to get that student the help that they need.
So talk a little bit about the help for high risk, for those kids who have a plan.
Okay. If a student actually has a plan and they can tell you when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it, why they want to do it, we immediately set up a psychological evaluation for those students. And the students are then watched from, I guess, the moment that we deem them high risk. Sometimes we're able to get a parent on the phone and sometimes we're not. And then it becomes a team effort. It becomes a situation where you have all hands on deck. The student is not allowed to go to the restroom.
So basically, we create a safety contract for the school, and also, when we contact the parents as well, a safety contract that can be followed at home.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
that's amongst reentry a lot also. So when a student is deemed high risk, and sometimes students are removed from the general, education setting, sometimes they have to, get the help that they need off campus. When they reenter, we do a safety contract, and sometimes that involves, not being left alone, small group with the counselors.
No shoelaces.
Yeah. Depending on how severe it is, because ultimately we want the kids to be safe at school.
Even especially when they go to the restroom, make sure that they only have the allotted time to just go
And
and
we
do
use a
their
buddy
necessities.
system. Yeah.
So it sounds like we are on top of things, and unfortunately, because we have to, there's enough of this going on that we are getting more practice than what we'd like. Well, and I commend you ladies for being on top of your game. It sounds like our kids are benefiting from that. Anything else as we work towards the end? I had one thought. We have a reporting system that we must have. Ms. Weaver, talk a little bit about the reporting system that's online.
So as far as our bullying report, so anybody can anonymously report bullying. So if a student, because many times bullying goes on and we're not aware because they're afraid of the bullies, or other students don't want to get involved. So they can go on the website and immediately report the bullying, give as much or as little information and as they want, so that an investigation can be initiated.
So
parents can.
Where do they click there? Where do they
So
find it?
if on our website, it's under parent resources, and if you go under parent resources, there's an area where you can report on there. We have several other ways to do it. We have anytime you go on our website or you Google our website, even we have something that comes up that can chat or call. We've even got through, which we usually use for recruiting, but we've gotten quite a few bullying reports on there as well. And for us, anyway, parents want to report it, or anybody, we're going to take
Sure.
it. And so when we find those, even though we're looking for enrollment in those, we immediately address those and get a campus director involved and the counselors.
So that's electronic. How other ways?
We have a referral system on the Mesquite campus as well. And so there's just a sheet of paper and like a suggestion box kind of area, because a lot of students, like Ms. Weaver mentioned, don't want to get involved. And then you have those students who not necessarily don't want to be involved, they just don't want to look like, our kids say, like a snitch. And they take the anonymous route of just filling out a slip of paper and leaving it with us, with the victim's name. Even if they don't know a lot of information, they can tell us it happened in this class. There were 2 students. They were in this grade. Yes.
Who saw it happen?
Mm-hmm. And then from there, we initiate the investigation. And it's usually really easy to find out who the alleged perpetrator is and who the alleged victim is. And with making parent contact after the investigation is initiated, we have a good system of sending home written letters to our parents, the alleged victim as well as the alleged perpetrator. And we use the word alleged because it's the initial stages of an investigation and you're not necessarily sure what happened, but you do want to alert a alleged victim's parents that something may or may not have happened on campus and that you're handling it, because most of the time people and parents just want to be heard and want to know that we are doing our due diligence to make sure their students are safe on campus.
Well, sure. That's why they send them.
Yes.
One of the first things that we'd have to train principals to understand is that parents, when we say what do parents want from a school,
A safe learning environment. for them.
safe. They want to know their kids are safe. Oh, and then learning.
Yes.
But they have to stay safe. Now, I will commend you guys at Mesquite because we still have parents who don't seek us out because of our dual language Engineering's elementary STEM academies in Mesquite. They do it because we're the safest gig in town, in that part of town, and they know it. So thank you for that. Thanks for keeping our kids safe. We're reaching the end of our segment. If you want to know more information about bullying and cyberbullying, please feel free to contact us. We would love to make you a partner in making sure you help us keep our kids safe.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ask Dr. Be Good show. For more information on Legacy Preparatory Charter Schools, visit our website, legacypca.com, or call 469-249-1099. And remember to like us on Facebook, where we stream live weekly Tuesdays at 3 p.m.